Try removing these 5 words from human history, not just from the dictionary, from history. No zero means no positional mathematics. No positional mathematics means no calculus, no physics, no computing. No algorithm means no systematic computation, which means the device you're watching this on doesn't exist. No algebra means European mathematics stays geometric for centuries longer. Remove all 5, and you haven't just changed the vocabulary, you've collapsed the infrastructure. These are not borrowed words. They are load-bearing walls, and every one of them started in a language most people have never studied. Welcome to the Airlearn Language Show. I'm ranking the 5 most influential borrowed words in history, not by how widely used they are, but by how much the concept they carried changed the world when it arrived. Each one has a specific moment it crossed a border. Each one made the receiving civilization capable of something it wasn't before. And before we go in, every word on this list is a door into a language and a civilization. If any of them make you want to walk through that door, Airlearn teaches Arabic, Japanese, Hindi, and more. Contextual, practical, built to stick. Links in the description. Number 5, taboo. The word taboo entered English in 1777. The man who brought it back was Captain James Cook. Cook encountered the word during his 3rd Pacific voyage in Tonga. The Tongan word is tapu, and it describes something Cook's crew kept running into but had no word for. Certain objects, certain people, certain places were off limits in a way that went beyond mere prohibition. They were forbidden because they existed in a state of sacred restriction. Touching them, speaking their name, or approaching them carried a kind of supernatural danger or pollution that no English word captured. Cook wrote the word in his journals as taboo, phonetically approximating what he heard, and noted it seemed to be a word of very comprehensive meaning, used across multiple Pacific Island groups. When his journals were published, the word traveled with them. Here's what makes this remarkable. English in 1777 had words for forbidden, prohibited, sacred, cursed, banned. But none of them carried the specific cluster of meanings that taboo held. The combination of sacred restriction, social prohibition, and the idea that violation had consequences beyond human punishment. When taboo arrived, it filled that gap instantly and completely. Within decades, it had moved from anthropology into philosophy, psychology, and everyday speech. Sigmund Freud used it as the title of a 1913 book examining the psychology of prohibition. Today, taboo describes anything from cultural restrictions on food to the subjects a family doesn't discuss at dinner, a concept that required a Tongan word because English, across its entire history of borrowing, had never needed to name it before. One man's journal entry. One Polynesian word, a concept that reshaped how the Western world talked about psychology of prohibition. Number 4, tsunami. On December 26, 2004, the Indian Ocean earthquake triggered a series of waves that killed approximately 200,000 people across 14 countries. It was one of the deadliest natural disasters in recorded history. It was also the moment the word tsunami entered the working vocabulary of virtually every language on Earth. The word is Japanese. Tsu means harbor, nami means wave. Harbor wave, because these events were most visible and destructive in enclosed coastal areas, arriving with little warning from open ocean. The word was well established in Japanese and among geologists and oceanographers who had borrowed it in the 20th century. But before 2004, most of the world used other terms. Tidal wave was the most common English phrase, despite being technically wrong since these waves have nothing to do with tides. Seismic sea wave was the scientific alternative. The 2004 disaster changed that in days. Global news coverage used tsunami because the scientific and geological community already had. Within a week, it was the standard term in news broadcasts across dozens of languages. Within a year, it had been formally adopted by meteorological and emergency management agencies worldwide. Within a decade, it had entered everyday speech in countries whose populations had no prior familiarity with either Japan or the geological phenomenon. Tsunami is the only word on this list where the crossing event is precisely dated. December 26, 2004. Before that day, it was a specialist term. After it, it was universal. Number 3, algebra. The word algebra comes from the title of a book. In 820 CE, a mathematician working in Baghdad named Muhammad ibn Musa al-khwarizmi wrote a treatise, the compendious book on calculation by completion and balancing. Algebra means completion, or the reuniting of broken parts, specifically the operation of moving a subtractive term from one side of an equation to the other to make it positive. When European scholars began translating Arabic mathematical texts into Latin in the 12th century, primarily in Toledo, Spain, which we covered in the Arabic influence episode, they took the word algebra directly. It became algebra in Latin, and then spread unchanged into Spanish, Italian, French, English, and virtually every European language. Here is what crossed the border with that word. Before algebra arrived in Europe, mathematics was primarily geometric. But Greek mathematics was tied to physical shape. To solve a problem, you drew it. You constructed it in space. Al-Khwarizmi's system was different. It was symbolic, abstract. It described relationships between unknown quantities using operations that could be written, manipulated, and solved without reference to any physical object. This was not just a new technique. It was a new way of thinking about mathematics, and it required a new word because European Latin had no term for what al-Khwarizmi had built. Algebra named an entire discipline into the existence in European mathematics. Calculus was built on top of it. Physics, as Newton formalized it, was expressed through it. The quantitative sciences, chemistry, astronomy, economics depend on it. Every equation you have ever written in your life is written in a tradition that required an Arabic word to name because the concept didn't exist in Europe before the word arrived. Number 2, algorithm. The word algorithm is a name. Specifically, it is a corrupted Latinization of the name of the man who gave us algebra, Muhammad ibn Musa al-khwarizmi. When his works were translated into Latin, his name was rendered as algoritmi, and the meaning shifted with it, from referring to al-khwarizmi specifically to referring to the system of calculation he described, to referring to any systematic step-by-step procedure for solving a problem. A mathematician's name became a concept. The concept became one of the most consequential words in human history. Then, in the 20th century, computer science arrived. Alan Turing's theoretical work in the 1930s on computation was fundamentally about algorithms, about what could and couldn't be solved by a systematic mechanical procedure. When physical computers were built, the instructions they ran were algorithms. Every function a computer performs, sorting lists, compressing an image, routing a network packet, displaying a web page, is an algorithm executing. And then the internet scaled these algorithms to billions of people simultaneously. The algorithm that decides what you see on social media feed. The algorithm that determines which search results appear first. The word algorithm went from a medieval mathematician's name to the single most consequential concept on the 21st century civilization. Al-Khwarizmi died in Baghdad around 850 CE. His name is now embedded in the infrastructure of the modern world so completely that removing it would require rebuilding everything. A man's name, Latinized, stretched across 12 centuries and still running. Number 1, 0. 0 is first, not because it's the most recent or the most dramatic or the most widely discussed, because without it, nothing else on this list is possible. The word 0 traces a path across 3 civilizations over roughly 1,000 years. It begins in India. Indian mathematicians working within the Sanskrit intellectual tradition developed the concept of shunya, emptiness, as a number, not a placeholder, not a gap in notation, an actual number with its own mathematical properties that could be added, subtracted, and placed in a position to change the value of everything around it. Brahmagupta, writing in 628 CE, was the first mathematician in recorded history to formally define 0 and establish rules for calculating with it. Combined with the positional decimal system, where the value of a digit depends on its position, this gave India a number system of extraordinary power. We covered this in the Arabic numerals episode, but here we're following the word, not just the concept. Arab scholars encountered the Indian system and the concept of shunya during the translation movement centered in Baghdad in the 8th and 9th centuries. Al-khwarizmi, him again, was central to transmitting it westward. In Arabic, the concept was called sifr, meaning empty, a direct translation of shunya. When the system reached Europe through Arabic manuscripts in the 12th centuries, translators carried sifr into Latin as zephyrim. In Italian, zephyrium became zefiro, then contracted to zero. The Italian mathematician Fibonacci, writing in 1202 in his Liber Abaci, a book that introduced the Arabic-Indian number system to European commercial mathematics, used the word. From Italian, it spread into every European language. Zero in English, cero in French, cero in Spanish. The same word, the same concept, spreading outward from the same Arabic root. Here is what zero actually carried when it crossed those borders. Before zero, European mathematics used Roman numerals. The Roman system had no zero. It had no positional notation. Try doing long division in Roman numerals. It's not slow. It's structurally impossible beyond small numbers. Zero made positional notation work. Positional notation made arithmetic mechanical, teachable, reliable, fast. Mechanical arithmetic made double-entry bookkeeping possible, which enabled modern commerce. It made astronomical calculation tractable, which enabled navigation and eventually the scientific revolution. Newton's calculus is built on limits approaching zero. Leibniz's calculus is built on infinitesimals, quantities closer to zero than any positive number. The entire formal structure of modern mathematics runs through zero. And then binary. The number system that computers operate on is based two, ones and zeros. The zero in binary isn't metaphorical. It's the same zero. It's the same concept, the same shunya that Brahmagupta defined in 628 CE. Without the concept of zero, there is no binary. Without binary, there are no computers. Without computers, there's no internet, no smartphone, no digital infrastructure of any kind. Shunya became sifr, became zephorium, became zero. A Sanskrit concept of emptiness, translated into Arabic, translated into Latin, translated into Italian, translated into every language on earth, and then placed at the foundation of everything the modern world is built on. That is what a borrowed word can do. So here is what these 5 words have in common. Each one crossed a border carrying something that didn't exist in the receiving language. Not a new sound for an old idea, a genuinely new idea that the receiving civilization had no mechanism to express before the word arrived. And notice the direction of the flow. All 5 words moved from civilizations that Western history has often treated as peripheral. Tongan, Japanese, Arabic, Sanskrit, into English and the European languages that currently dominate the global discourse. The ideas didn't flow from the center outwards. They flowed from what Western maps called the edges, inward, and they became load-bearing. That's worth sitting with. The infrastructure underneath modern mathematics, modern computing, and the modern psychology of social norms, the vocabulary for all of it came from somewhere else, from civilizations that were working on harder problems earlier and whose names we mostly replaced with the words they gave us. Every word on this list is a door into a language and a civilization worth understanding on its own terms, not just for the words it contributed, but for everything else it built that we haven't borrowed yet. If any of these opened that door for you, Airlearn is a great place to walk through it. Links in the description. See you in the next one.